Well, it is my pleasure to welcome everyone and wish you a happy Hanukkah. Thank you for joining us. This is the second occasion, my second occasion as Speaker of the House, where I'll be able to gather with you for this celebration of light. Last year was the first time in history, you may remember, that we ever had an official menorah lighting here in the Capitol. But this year we get to do it with my own personal menorah. It's one that Rabbi Shem Tov and with the assistance of my colleague Leader Jeffries presented to me a couple of months ago. It's actually made of shrapnel of rockets that were shot down by the IDF and then smelted together by an Israeli artisan. It's really one of a kind. I'm very grateful for that symbolic gift, not only because it's my first menorah, but because when you look at it, you're reminded of the true meaning of Hanukkah, that in the face of darkness, light burst forth, and in the presence of fear, miracles emerge. And in moments of despair, hope springs eternal. And the more time I've spent with America's rabbis and our Jewish brothers and sisters around the country over the last year, the more hopeful that I become for the future. We all know that 2024 was a very difficult year for Jewish Americans, and on college campuses and, of course, in the land of Israel itself. Yet in the face of vitriol and war, the Jewish people have shown unshakable strength and optimism and resilience. It's been very inspiring. And that's because we believe the light of truth always overcomes the darkness of terror. As Prime Minister Netanyahu reminds us often, the battle for Israel's existence is truly a battle between light and darkness. It's a battle between civilization versus barbarism, good versus evil. So as we ceremonially light the first of these 8 candles, we recall the power of light within each of us, and we hold on to faith that God has not forgotten his people. As we remember the Almighty's work in the lives of figures like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Joseph, and Moses, through the time of the Maccabees, the Second Temple, and up until this very day, we can rejoice in the hope of victory and repeat the words of David in the 30th Psalm. I will exalt you, Lord, for you lifted me out of the depths and did not let my enemies gloat over me. I'm happy to yield the podium now to Leader Chuck Schumer.
Thank you, Speaker, and Chag Sameach, a happy holiday to one and all. I may have told this story last year, but I like it, so for those of you who are not here, we all put on our yarmulkes, so this is my yarmulke story. So in 1992, I was a congressman. I was redistricted into Queens, as well as Brooklyn. And I was in a Jewish neighborhood of Queens getting to meet the voters, and a lady came over to me and said, well, you're Congressman Schumer. I said, yes. I read in the Queens Tribune, you're my new congressman. I said, yes, I am, ma'am. She said, I'd like to pay you a compliment. I've never met you in person, but I watch C-SPAN religiously, and you're the only one, and you have more courage than any of the other 435 members of Congress. I said, well, ma'am, you know, I know some of them are no good nicks, but a lot of them are very estimable people. What makes you say I, of all the 435, have the most courage? She said, well, as I said, I watch C-SPAN religiously, even though I haven't met you. You're the only one, when you rise to your feet to speak, who has the courage to wear a yarmulke. I said, thank you, ma'am. It's not a yarmulke. Anyway, that's my little yarmulke story. I could go on and tell Jewish stories, and we could be here till the end of Hanukkah 2 weeks from now. Anyway, it's great to be here. I want to thank Speaker Johnson, Leader Jeffries, Rabbi Shem Tov, friends, colleagues. And I thank you all for being here as the Jewish people in America and around the world prepare to celebrate Hanukkah later this month. As the first Jewish Senate Majority Leader and the highest-ranking Jewish elected official in American history, I am proud to stand before you in this great temple of democracy to share in the light of Hanukkah. As we all know, the story of Hanukkah is, among many things, a story of perseverance in the face of unspeakable hatred. It's a story about how the Jewish people of a different age, forced from their land, forbidden to practice their religion, their temple destroyed and desecrated, gathered to pray in secret, banded together in the hills and fields, and fought off their attackers. Once victorious, they set about the hard, slow, and painful work of rededicating the temple and lighting the eternal flame of hope. Ner Tamid. Today, thousands of years later, the responsibility to keep that flame of hope burning bright falls on every one of us. The world is swirling with strong winds threatening to extinguish that flame. Evil forces of anti-Semitism, hatred, bigotry. We cannot let these pernicious forces win to the day. We must work together across the aisle to keep them from succeeding in America. In the darkness of our world, 436 days after the horrific attacks in Israel on October 7th, with over 100 hostages still held captive by the evil and terrorist group Hamas, and amid a rise in anti-Semitic attacks at home and abroad, we need to keep the flame of hope burning brighter, greater, more than ever. This Hanukkah, let the light from the flame guide us towards unity in the face of division. Let it guide us towards a future inspired by the miracles of the past, full of hope, courage, resilience. Let it guide us towards a more just and equal world, free from hatred, bigotry, discrimination, and all other forces of darkness. Chag Sameach, a very happy Hanukkah to all of you. Leader Jeffries.
Thank you, Rabbi Shemtov, for your leadership, your partnership, as well as for your friendship, and for hosting this special Congressional Hanukkah celebration. To Speaker Johnson, Leader Schumer, my distinguished colleagues in the House and in the Senate, all those assembled, it's a high honor and a distinct privilege to be with you all today. The story of Hanukkah is one of resilience in the face of adversity, hope in the face of oppression, and light in the face of despair. It tells the perpetual story of the Jewish people, one of thousands of years of uncertainty, pain, persecution, but most importantly and ultimately of triumph. Hanukkah teaches us that even a small amount of light can drown out a whole lot of darkness. How fitting for a people that would, as Isaiah said, be a light unto the nations. And this lesson has perhaps never been more important because these are extraordinarily challenging times. Anti-Semitism in America and around the world is on the rise. Our Jewish brothers and sisters understandably feel a deep sense of anxiety about the future. But we are with you. We will do everything that we can to crush anti-Semitism and bury it into the ground, never to rise again. We will continue to reiterate with moral clarity that anti-Semitism in any way, shape, or form is unacceptable, unconscionable, and un-American. And that our country must always be a safe place for the Jewish community, whether at a synagogue, on a college campus, at home, in the community, or anywhere that the Jewish community may be found. We, of course, as my colleagues indicated, are also here more than a year since the horrific attack carried out by Hamas on October 7th. And still, more than a year later, there are American and Israeli hostages held in Gaza. Our commitment, of course, is to make sure that every single hostage is returned home. Our commitment is to Israel's security, which has been and will always be ironclad. And we, of course, will stand with our friend and ally, Israel, as a Jewish and democratic state, always and forever. Yes, of course, these are challenging times, but the Jewish story, the Jewish community, is strong and resilient, and you are never alone. May we all learn from the miracle of Hanukkah that in the face of unprecedented darkness, and as we navigate through these tough times, the faith, the resilience, and the spirit of the Jewish people will continue to be a guiding light. Happy Hanukkah to all. May God bless you. May God bless the Jewish people. May God continue to bless the United States of America.
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker, Leader Schumer, Leader Jeffries, members of the House, friends one and all. I'm honored to be here, of course, as we all are, to celebrate the upcoming days of Hanukkah. Hanukkah has not yet begun, but it is upon us, and when it does begin, there will be very few people in this building or in the complex. So the decision was made by the Speaker to put this together today, which creates an island of togetherness in what can be a sometimes very fractured space. Hanukkah means rededication. It also stems from the word chinuch, which means education. And as I have shared with the Speaker and Leader Jeffries, when we have more than one opinion and a difference of opinion, we have a wider pool of knowledge. When we have animus, we have a descent into chaos in society. And I think I could speak for all of us, not just in this room, but for hundreds of millions of my fellow citizens across the country that watch these two leaders of the House, even as they disagree, have a personal respect for each other, which is huge, and which spreads across our country in a warmth that melts a lot of cold. Leader Schumer, thanks for being here. Last year, he lent us his menorah that he was presented at the Lamplighter Awards. This year, we have Speaker Johnson's. And yes, it was an incredible moment to be able to present that to you, sir, especially having your counterpart, Leader Jeffries, who you said you were honored to have as your counterpart, present and on hand for that. This is something which is very important, and it's a gift, like I said, to the citizens of this great nation. Now, one of the leaders who's not here, Leader McConnell, we know suffered a fall just recently, and I think it's appropriate that we all hold him in our prayers, that he have a full recovery, and that he continue to be able to serve this great nation as he has, as Leader Schumer is the first Jewish majority leader. I think Senator McConnell is the longest leading Senate leader altogether, right? Am I right? For now. For now. So this temple of democracy that was spoken of is a very important central pillar in our American life. The Holy Temple in Jerusalem, which stood over 2,000 years ago, is a very central pillar in Jewish life. So imagine how incredible it would be for someone who's Jewish to be in this space as the rededication of that temple in Jerusalem is celebrated right here in this Temple of Democracy in Washington. The light on this dome shines through the whole world, showing that the freedom of the human spirit is so important for the world to survive. So what is oil? Oil is something which soothes, as we are taught. It's something which permeates or penetrates any surface. It gives flavor to something which it is added to. And I think that that's something important to remember. The warm glow of the menorah lights is something that struck me as a young child. I grew up in Philadelphia. I was born in the late 60s, so I was there for the bicentennial, very patriotic. And it was actually 50 years ago that public menorah lighting, something you see on every public space in America, just about, began in Independence Mall. It's a very big milestone. And now we light a big menorah just a few days hence on America's front lawn, right on the ellipse in front of the White House. And we always have senior officials join us, which is something which reminds us as Jews that we are a small minority, a very small minority, less than 2% of this nation. But yet, we have made great and incredible contributions through the lives of so many Jews, and sadly, in too many cases, through dying for our country, with Jews that have served in our armed forces. And I think it's a good time for us to have the men and women who serve our defenses, stateside and abroad, also in our thoughts as we light this incredible symbol of the menorah. Just recently, I was at an event for the Navy SEALs Foundation, which honors and supports the widows and orphans of SEALs who die in action. And I was discussing something with an admiral, and then it dawned upon me, and I said to him, "Sir, you know, the work you do wearing your uniform, it secures the ability of me to do the work I do wearing mine." So I think that as the plaque, there's one plaque discussing the presentation to the speaker, the other is on the menorah itself that has that famous phrase from the scriptures, "And they shall beat their swords into plowshares." We all have power. Every single one of us has a lot of incredible human power. And we can use them for swords, we can use them for plowshares, and sometimes we can turn the very swords into plowshares, misunderstanding into understanding, difference into harmony. And as we see our leaders who not only speak words of conciliation and friendship and togetherness despite different opinions, we have to respect and actually salute the fact of how they live them as an example for all of us. So without further ado, because I have the good fortune of standing between you and the latkes, I think I'm going to just proceed now with the lighting, if that's okay, and just invite the leaders to join me. Now remember, sometimes you see things and they say, "Do not try this at home." I would like to say, do try this at home. If you're Jewish or you have Jewish friends, there are plenty of little personal kits that you can take home with you after the ceremony is over. So we have 8 here, and then the one in the middle is always either higher or off to the side. That represents the public servant, the one who's not among the rest of society, but serves the rest of society. So if this were in our home or in a synagogue, we'd light one candle and light the other ones from it. Now I will light them from left to right, the way you see it, because every night we light second candle, third candle, fourth candle, until they're all lit. Every day brings an opportunity for an additional light. But since this is a demonstration, we're going to light all 8 just now. So we also, since it's not the festival, we'll substitute the word Hashem for God's name. And if you know the melodies, you'll join me. If not, just come along. Or if that's not what you want to do, you can just watch. Okay, here it goes. Try this again. We have lots of notice at the back for anyone who is interested.